Up next, part 2 of building my Viper Bay diorama. Well, hey guys, and welcome back to another Interested Modeler. Ready to move on now with my Viper Bay diorama. Again, this is a 1/72 scale representation of the Galactica landing bay as seen on the Reimagined series. The kit is designed and sold by Cozmic Scale Models. Keith did a beautiful job designing this model kit. If you get a hold of it, I'm sure you'll be as equally impressed as I've been with how accurate this model is. It's a great representation of the landing bay as seen on the TV show. If you've been following along now, you know that I've painted up the walls and have added in the details and decals, so I'm ready to assemble it. But before I get to that step, we have to light it up. So that's what this video is going to cover, is lighting the model. There are lights scattered throughout the model. You can see there's light fixtures are going to be positioned all along the upper and lower section of the back wall, as well as underneath the walkway. And we've got lights that are going to be positioned at the end of each of the dividing walls here. Keith has designed this to have channels that allow you to feed the wire through and exit through the bottom. So lighting is going to be pretty straightforward here. Just going to be using some chip size SMDs from Evans Design. They'll be cool white in color, and they'll all feed into a AA power source. So first step is to actually work with the clear pieces that are included in the kit that stand in for those light fixtures. There's one thing I need to do to prep them before installing. Let's go ahead and jump right into that. So these are the clear pieces now provided for the light fixtures, and hopefully you can see that there is a line that divides the top from the bottom section here. If you look at the reference photo, you'll notice that the light fixture has a housing at the top, connected of course to the cover for the light source at the bottom. So to replicate that look, we have to paint these, and so hopefully it'll be enough when it comes to light blocking to just apply a primer at the top, followed by the medium gray that I'm planning to paint these with. Now oftentimes I use tulip paint to help with light blocking, but it will not adhere or brush on properly onto this smooth clear surface here. So I'm going to go ahead and take these off and airbrush the primer and the medium gray, and we'll test it all out with an SMD in a moment. Okay, so this is how they look painted, and I decided just to rely on the gray Stino Rust primer since the color looks already pretty close to the prop. So here I've mounted one onto the wall. Let's go ahead and turn on our light source. And yeah, I think it effectively resembles the look of the light fixture. So I think this is definitely going to work out. Now this is how the light mounts onto the other side of the wall here. And so I think I do need to think about light blocking from this side of the diorama. And as for the ones that go underneath the walkway now, there's an opening here for the LED. And you feed the wire through the back, and I just have to bend the head of the SMD so that it's angled like this, and that way the light shines down in this direction. Now the two center dividing walls do have openings here for lights, and at first I did not see them. If you look at this reference picture, I couldn't see any there. But modeler Don Demers did send on a few others, and sure enough, they are in these pictures. I'm not sure why the discrepancy, but I'm going to go ahead and feed the wires through to mount some SMDs here. Now, at first I did try to feed the wires through, but it was getting bunched up here on the inside corner of the channel. And the trick is to wind them tight, as you see here, just winding the two wires as tight as I can get them. And when you do that, you do not run across that problem. They definitely feed through to the bottom. So once they were in, I applied some super glue here to hold them in place, and just using my airbrush here to help cure the glue. And did a quick light test, and this is going to work out just fine. And finally, for these light fixtures here, the wire easily feeds through. And I'm going to tuck the SMD inside that little square now. Add a little super glue here at the bottom to secure it in place here. Now because the SMD takes up all this space here, I actually need to snip off this back piece. That way the fixture itself will glue right onto the surface here. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to light block from this side of the wall, and what I'm using for that is foil tape. I actually got a hold of some black foil tape. I didn't realize they made this in black. And for the LEDs that have the solder points exposed like these, I do have to insulate them from the foil tape, so I'm just taking some styrene plastic, cutting a piece large enough to cover the SMD, and then placing that onto the foil tape, and then putting it onto the SMD like this. Now this also adds a little extra protection from dislodging the SMD later on as I'm trying to group these together to feed to our light source, so it's helpful for that purpose as well. So one other thing before moving on, I had to apply a dull coat to all of the pieces, and something else occurred to me. I was thinking that the light fixtures would look a little better by painting on a thin down ivory or white to help a little bit with light diffusion. Spraying on the dull coat provided some texture, allowing for better paint adhesion, so I proceeded with brushing on a thin layer of paint, and for this I chose ivory instead of white. And here's a final light test, and I really like the way it dulls the brightness just a little bit, just brings down those hot spots just a little. Well, hey, I thought I would stop here for a moment just to inform you guys about a mishap. I always like to do that so you guys don't run across the same problems. This has to do now with gluing the styrene to the Foamular. Now in the past I've used hot glue. The projects worked out great. I didn't have a problem using hot glue, but those projects were smaller. The reason why size is a problem is because hot glue is best when it comes out of that gun, right? When it's fresh and hot, you're going to get a pretty good adherence. However, I noticed almost immediately this was going to be a problem as I started to apply the hot glue, because as I got to the end of the base, I already could tell the hot glue was cooling off where I started. So when I pressed the two things together, I got some adherence, but it was very uneven. The best adherence was where the glue was fresh out of the gun, and the worst was on the opposite side, so I knew it wasn't going to work and I had to toss it out. So I had to consider other adhesives, and so I have some recommendations for you. My first recommendation is this one here. This is from Bob Smith Industries. It's a 2-part epoxy, has a 5-minute cure time. It's probably your best bet. The nice thing about this is that it's not going to harden immediately, and so you still have time to fudge with it if you want to. And then once 5 minutes have passed, you actually get a pretty good adherence. Now it's going to take longer for it to cure completely, but at least you can move on to other things and continue to work. However, one disadvantage of this is you have to mix the two, so if you do have a large area to work with, as you would in this case, you might be better off using something like this if you're not in a hurry. Gorilla Glue is my other recommendation for you. This is not their super glue now, but you can easily spread this over a large area, again, not having to mix or make a big batch of this stuff. The only thing is you're going to have to give this more time to cure. Now if you went back 2 hours later or so, I think you'd be good enough to work with it, but the best thing would be just to do it overnight. Just let it sit overnight, and then the next morning you're good to go. The other option you can try is tacky glue. This works out pretty decently also. I think though you get a little bit better adherence with this, but this isn't bad either. Again, same thing, it takes a long time to cure, so you have to just give it enough time for that to happen before you move on. The other adhesive I did test out, which is not one you want to use, is contact cement. This came up as I was conversing with another modeler. Contact cement has acetone in it, which will eat away at the Foamular. So hopefully you'll find those suggestions helpful if you want to do a project like this and won't have any problems. Let's go ahead and move on. So let's walk through the process of how I created the flooring. After priming the floor, I splattered on various shades of browns and grays. After spraying on a gloss coat, I then proceeded with the salt and hairspray technique. Since I wanted some areas to appear more weathered than others, I once again assembled the walls together to help with this process. Now once this was dried, I sprayed on the same white-gray color that I used for the walls. After allowing that to dry, I dissolved the salt and used the brush to also create some scrapes and scratches here and there. Afterwards, another gloss coat was applied, and then I used Vallejo's gray wash over the entire floor to make it look grimier. Once the step was completed, I thought I was ready to begin final assembly, but decided to take another look at some reference pictures, and I'm glad I did, because I was reminded that there's this yellow stripe that follows the perimeter along the black walls. Now this step probably should have been done prior to the wash, but well, better late than never, and I could lightly go over it with a wash afterwards anyway. So I carefully masked it off, using the walls as a guide, placing the line about 1 centimeter from the wall. I decided on a 3mm width for the line. I also used a little salt, as well as dabbing on a little bit of masking fluid to give it a warm, weathered appearance. Well, the walls aren't yet glued into place, but I thought I would assemble everything again just to kind of see how the striping matches up here, and I think it worked out well. The color I chose to use was a mix of these two here, golden yellow and golden brown from Monument Hobbies. Probably about a 70-30 mix, I'd say. And I think it complements the yellow on our decals pretty well. Well, before I assemble everything, I wanted to show you the paneling that I'm going to be putting along the sides of the display. These are the styrene strips I cut for that purpose, and I painted them up this way, inspired by the hull plating that you see on the Galactica. So this was achieved in the same method I did with the Grissom a while back here. Just started off with a gunmetal, and then I just used masking tape just in a random pattern. The next color that was applied was pewter, which is just a little lighter. And then you can see here, this is now the final color, which is obsidian. And you just start off by spraying with a little more intensity right where the border of the masking tape is, and just gradually fade it out. And I think it turned out well. Okay, well, the back railing now is in place. It was easier than I thought it was going to be. Here's just a little video of me putting the hand railing supports on, and then the railing itself, which is just really just a styrene rod. Just did it in sections, leaving an open section there for the ladder. But yeah, it was very straightforward. Well, before showing you the completed Viper Bay, I thought I would share with you how the wires are laid out here underneath the diorama. So I separated them now into 4 groups, and Group A has both the first and second wall together. The first wall now only has the lamp at the front there, while the second wall has the lamp here as well as in the midsection. And since these two are closest together and the wires can reach each other, I decided to pair those walls together there. The second group here, Group B, is coming from the third wall. And as I said, just like the second, it also has 2 LEDs coming in from the midsection. And I paired those together with Group C, which consists of all of the LEDs from the back wall. D is just simply the final wall here, which just has that lamp coming in from the tip. And so we've got connecting wires now, connecting all of the positives and negatives together here. We've got a connecting wire now from A to B. So we paired these groups together here, and then we have another connecting wire from B to D, and then it's also wired into the switch. And on this side now we have the battery. As I mentioned, I was going to be placing it over here in this corner. Perfect space for the battery. You can see there are 2 magnets there, and the reason those magnets are in place is to help secure this enclosure that I have built for it. This was just made out of styrene sheet, and just used some odds and ends to detail it. And I had these decals here from a Hasegawa US aerospace ground equipment set, and it actually is 1/72 in scale also. So this just fits right over our batteries here, and the switch is on the side. So just a few things to finish up here, and I'll show you the Viper Bay diorama. Okay, here's the completed 1/72 Viper Bay as seen in the reimagined Battlestar Galactica series. The model is available at Cozmic Scale Models, and they did such a great job with making an accurate representation of the Viper Bay. It's impressive, and the lights make it pop even more. This kit is easy and straightforward to paint, detail, and assemble. Painting amounted to just a few colors, which included a white-gray for the walls, duck egg blue for the lower trim, and gunmetal for the doors, railing, and ladder. The model definitely requires construction of a base, and for this I chose Foamular and styrene plastic sheets, which worked well. I have found Foamular easy to manage. It doesn't require any sawing or sanding as would be needed with a wooden base, and it's much lighter. To weather the diorama, I simply used water-based washes along with a Tamiya weathering kit and some final touches with MIG Ammo Starship Wash, just to add some extra grime into all of the corners and base of the walls. Again, all the lights are chip-size cool white SMDs from Evans Design, and it's a big help that the model comes with preformed built-in channels, which makes it easy to accommodate all of the wires. The nice thing about these SMDs is that they don't take much power to light, and a AA power source is more than adequate here. Unlike previous projects using Foamular and lights, I decided to place the battery on the top of the display rather than on the bottom, and concealed it with a scratch-built enclosure. For the enclosure, I scribed lines and added some greeblies for my parts drawer, then finished it with a wash. I think it fits right in with the rest of it. This Viper diorama is separated into 3 sections, a repair bay and 2 hanger bays. The model comes with decals for each of the hanger bays, and I carefully used my X-Acto knife to create small tears and gaps to give them a weathered appearance. The yellow line that follows along the perimeter of the bay was airbrushed using Monument Hobby paints. Overall, I think this makes a really cool display, and I'm looking forward to the next part of the build, which is to add in fighters, equipment, and figures. Okay guys, well I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I hope you've enjoyed following along so far. It's a fun project to work on for sure. Looking forward to now building those Vipers and working with the figures and equipment. One thing I want to make mention is I came across this reference photo and it's inspired me to try something like this. You can see this Mark II Viper being worked on with a canvas draped over it. So I started watching videos on how to create tarps and canvases. A lot of guys who do military models do this sort of thing. And so I thought it'd be fun to add this into our diorama. So, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me here on my YouTube channel or at illustratormodeler@gmail.com. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in part 3. Take care.